Today we're going to talk about how to set up your kitchen for Airbnb. Let's jump right in. My name's Sean Rocky, Geech Airbnb host with over 100 properties. I love to cook, and so every kitchen in my life needs to have an island. So welcome to my island. The kitchen isn't always a necessary amenity. Let's first lead off with my friend whose kitchen actually made his place perform worse. I wouldn't call him a full-blown student, but he's been following me for years. He learned how to Airbnb from this YouTube channel a few years ago. And during COVID, he was really watching my videos closely and decided to ramp up his video on some advice that I put on a couple videos. He is now up to 294 properties in Mexico City. That's huge. Nathan, you're awesome. Now, Nathan told me a story about these domes. He actually let me stay in one of his domes, his very first one, El Domo, I stayed in Mexico City. It obviously does not have a kitchen, and it does not need one. But he put 2 more domes up in Mexico City, and one he put a kitchen in there, thinking that, it's an amenity that people will like. But the missing detail here is El Domo and the other 2 domes are experience-style accommodations. They're not long-term, weekly, monthly style accommodations. They're spots where people who are kind of coming into the city, they want to try the restaurants, they want to try things, are going to go stay in kind of this cool dome type situation. So the kitchen is actually not only just a waste of space, but will also create this illusion that you're paying for something that you don't want, right? Because anytime you see anything of value in your Airbnb, people are going to assume that it's tied into the price. Now, unless your price is an absolute steal, they're going to look at your price and go, maybe I can find something that I like more for cheaper, or something I like the same for cheaper because I won't be paying for a kitchen. So in his case, El Domo without a kitchen performs better than his dome with a kitchen because the type of customer that he has doesn't want a kitchen in their little dome experience. This can show how amenities can really sway the battle for getting your bookings. Anytime that you have a listing that could do weekly or monthly bookings, the kitchen becomes, aside from maybe the quality of the bed, the most important amenity, and washer and dryer, right? So let's go top 3 here. For monthly stays, you need a great quality bed, washer dryer in the unit, and then a kitchen that's comparable because people are going to go grocery shop and they're going to cook for themselves. So now, what do you need in your kitchen? Well, of course, you need yourself a knife block. The knife block, I like these ones that are kind of fancier looking. They're acrylic and they fan out. They're great for photography. I personally don't use one myself. I use more of like a traditional knife block because it's easier to clean. Now, we still use these acrylic fan style ones because they're just great for photography, but I'm not going to say that you have to use something that just looks good in photos. But I will say, do not get dishware or knives that are ionized to be black on the outside because they scrape and they wear off and they look old faster. So go with the natural stainless steel look is going to be my first tip for you on knives. When it comes to pots and pans, it's super important you pick something that can be cleaned and is durable. I think nonstick is super important, but if you get Teflon nonstick, the Teflon will start to scrape away and get old. So if you're going to choose a nonstick option, go for ceramic. If you do decide to do a stainless steel type option like this because you're going for higher quality dishes, like something that you'll get from Sur La Table. Actually, even though I got these on Amazon for a decent price too. I think I paid like $150 for a set, but they're the ones with the copper lining under here that kind of does good distribution of heat, great for cooking. You will want to keep steel wool in your kitchen and with your cleaners at all times. Even if you don't have high quality dishware, I will tell you that steel wool makes cleaning the fastest. Even if you don't need to use steel wool because you could technically get stuff out, steel wool just cuts through so much stuff and will save your housekeepers time and money. And recovering dishes, cleaning these out to be like new after every cleaning is going to be a long-term maintenance consideration that you can think of. A lot of cleaners will clean something well, but they won't worry about getting like that last that layer, that blackness off. That stuff will pile on, and even on the outside of the dishes, it'll start to get worse and worse and worse, and there will become a point where you can't save it. So that's another thing. Train your cleaners to clean the pots and pans all the way so they look like new every time, because 2 years from now, this pan will be great. 2 years from now, as long as it's cleaned properly. Otherwise, 6 months from now, this thing is trash. And it's all the decision making of the housekeepers. There are things that many people don't include or otherwise forget. A lot of people forget colanders. I don't know why, because maybe you just all shop super quickly and you just hit a few buttons and you think you have a whole kitchen. Spaghetti strainers, colanders, toasters. I forgot toasters for a year and a half, but I also don't have a toaster in my own place because I don't use one, so those kind of biases will come into play. So you'll want things like colanders, strainers, electric kettles for water, a coffee maker, toasters in your Airbnb space. Of course, the knife set like we talked about, good pots and pans. Things like rolling pins and serving trays. Let me grab you something. Things like rolling pins and serving trays are not necessary until you start to get up to a certain guest count. And this is where I guess my pro tips start in the kitchen. You can decide how much you're willing to put into the kitchen based on what you consider to be your average length of stay and your average group size. Those are going to be the two factors for choosing what goes in your kitchen. So if I'm hosting a group of 10 or more, I will always include family style cooking products, which include a rolling pin, extra sets of cutting boards, baking sheets, the baking sheets that include like the shapes for the cupcakes, serving trays, even, for example, cheese board kind of things whenever I have like groups of 10 or more. These are going to be the things that make the kitchen seem more family oriented. Now I also include a blender at 8 guests or more, and nuanced cooking supplies like zesters or garlic presses and things like that for any homes that are 3-bedroom or greater. All right, so the reason why is, like I said, the rolling pin, the extra cutting boards, the lemon zester, the garlic press, all of these little nuanced cooking supplies are really geared towards someone who lives in the kitchen. And when you have a family that's traveling for any extended period of time, you really want to bank on selling your space to somebody who has a homemaker within that reservation, somebody who uses the kitchen. The reason why is you tend to have a better quality of guest when you have that kind of traditional family unit traveling. In our case, it works better. We have traveling professionals where like they really appreciate the kitchen and it goes well. And if you can get those people to book your listing farther out, and this is really the design of this, is those families that are planning to travel are going to book further in advance and they're going to pay more. And by filling up your calendar with 4-day stays, 10-day stays with people who really love that you spent extra money on the kitchen, you will avoid last-minute vacancies that lead to the people who smoke in your home, disrespect your home. They don't care about your kitchen, they just wanted a place to do stupid stuff, right? So investing in your kitchen is one of the great ways for a 3-bedroom house or larger to save yourself from those last-minute lackings of occupancy. You should always have a water filter in the fridge at all times. Even if there is one on the front of the fridge, I think it's best to have a 10-cup water filter inside the fridge ready to go for your guests. It's just more at home than water bottles. And you should always include wine glasses, always. Now you can use the cheaper wine openers, like the small corkscrew style ones for smaller houses, but the moment that you have any big house, you should really invest in a quality wine opener because they actually tend to get used a lot. And this rabbit design, this one will last nearly forever, and people enjoy having creature comforts when they enjoy their luxuries, and drinking wine with friends at home is one of those luxuries that they like to have good creature comforts. A couple home stretch quick tips for you here. You can get your dishware from IKEA for cheap. It's probably the cheapest place to get your dishware. The plates can be like $1 a piece. The cups can be $2. The wine glasses are super cheap, and it's easy to replace. That's where we go for all of our stuff. And in general, IKEA also has high quality cooking utensils for the most part. So go with IKEA. Now, when we talk about inventory levels or stocking, I will have, and now this is where I kind of use a little math. So what I teach my students in the course, I've got this big sheet of everything you could ever need for an Airbnb, and then we grid it on size. So if it sleeps 4 people, 6 people, 8, 10, 12, etc. And so when we get to the kitchen section, for every person that is staying in your home, you should have 2 forks, right? So silverware is at what we call 200%. For a person that stays at your place, you should have 1.5 plates, right? So if you have a place that sleeps 4 people, you should have 6 plates at minimum, right? Cups, we also do 200% on cups. We do 200% on coffee cups, drinking glasses, stuff like that. We do 150% on wine glasses because they tend to be more expensive. And then plates and bowls and stuff we do 150% on. So if you sleep 10 people, have 15 plates, right? But you'll have 20 forks, for example. This is because of the inevitability of things breaking or going bad or going missing, and you will eventually need to restock this stuff, but this always gives you a little runway. And if you think about it, when people are eating at home, they want to be able to grab for a fork twice within a day without having to constantly redo their dishes. So having more forks and silverware, it costs very little and it requires very little storage space to give an abundance of that kind of stuff. So when it's easy to overstock on stuff, and it's not a consumable that people can just use, then go for it. And speaking of consumables, be careful on what you keep in your kitchen. If you have a small price competitive listing, don't have a full spice rack. Do not spend a bunch of money on onion powder and turmeric and basil and oregano and all of this stuff and then have butter and eggs in the fridge, because people will consume that and it will cost you $4, $8, $12 per reservation for some of this stuff. And if you're competing on very small margins because you have an apartment in Houston that sleeps 4 people and it's slow season and your rate goes down to the 60s or 70s a night, you don't have, $12 a night to burn on cooking supplies. So with very small listings, we provide salt and pepper. We provide non-stick spray. We don't even provide full olive oil. We don't provide butter in the fridge. We have salt, pepper, and spray. Once we get into larger listings or listings that cost more money, ones that tend to fetch a higher price, we will then include actual real olive oil. We'll start to include spices like paprika, chili powder, onion powder, stuff like that. If we get to a bigger place, like a place that fetches north of a few $100s a night, we start to include things like real lemons, real garlic, things that don't go bad super fast, and if they do start to get old, they don't offend anybody, right? Because the thing about an avocado here, for example, this avocado is getting old, and inside of 3 days, this thing will go from ugly to a problem, and you don't want your guests having to deal with the problems of you giving them produce. So be super careful on what you do leave out, but we'll go full spice rack, and then even leave out some produce on places that will fetch $300 a night that are family oriented. And a pro tip for you also, when it comes to how you stock your kitchen, anything that you do that your competitors do not do, you need to be pushing it, you need to be selling it. So if you do provide lemons and garlic, you should have a little bowl. Probably a bowl that's like smaller than this, but you'll put all of the things that you offer into this little bowl, and you'll have a little photo shoot with it, right? You put it on the counter and you'll have a photo shoot. So get a smaller bowl that actually allows everything to protrude, or provide more stuff. So a bowl this size actually does the trick. Or you can actually even put some plates upside down in a bowl like this and elevate everything so it just rises to the top. You really want to do a good photo shoot where you've got your lemons, tomatoes, and like garlic sticking out of a bowl and taking a shot of it so it looks really cosmetic. By doing this, when somebody goes through the photo reel, they will see that you offer stuff without having to read. A lot of people don't read the description. Fun fact for you, 6 out of 10 people when they book an Airbnb, the first thing that they do is scroll through the photos, and some don't ever think to read the description. So if you want somebody to know something, show it in the photos. And so if you have a competitive offering, you need to put it in the photos. So one thing that we always do, when you take photos of your kitchen, you should have it staged. And let me show you what I mean. What I mean by staged is when you go to take the photos of the kitchen, you're going to have what I call to be the stove close-up, which is going to have countertop space, the stove top, the front of the oven, which is back here, and it's going to be at about level with where the camera is here, and it's going to shoot straight across. You want to have pots and pans out. You want to have cooking utensils. You also want to have a cutting board with a knife placed on the cutting board, and you're setting the shot. It's much like when you do a table photo. When you take a photo of your dining table, you want big plate, small plate, bowl, wine glass, napkin, and you want place settings all around the table, so when you take those shots, it looks like it's ready to be used. This kitchen, you want to have that mise en place kind of look where everything is ready to be used, and that's what you take your photo of. If you don't take a photo of the kitchen like so, and you take a photo instead like so, it's just not as cool. Can you tell? Not as cool. Exactly. So make sure that whatever you do to make your kitchen the best place to stay, that you show people. I mean it. So Remember guys, the kitchen is a competitive amenity for anybody who's staying more than 4 days. The average length of stay on Airbnb is 4 to 6 days. Anybody staying in that window or longer will consider using the kitchen. If you have small reservations, you don't need to go nuts on consumables like spices and oils, but as you get bigger, you should start to come out of pocket on stuff like that. Start to do things like lemons and garlic and produce and fruits that don't go bad fast. That way you can offer them something, and if they don't use it, it's okay because the next person might. Like for example, squash, like a butternut squash will last for a long, long time. Somebody can use the squash and feel like they got a deal. Otherwise, it can decorate the kitchen for some time to come. Amp up your offerings based on size. Make sure that you start adding things like not only a toaster and cutting board and a coffee station with decaf coffee and tea, because we talk about that a lot, but start adding things like a blender and a rice cooker and serving trays and extra cutting boards and baking sheets and rolling pins and all the stuff that people use in the kitchen. Start adding that as the size of the place gets bigger. Once you get to 12 plus people, you're going to also have a pantry with flour and sugar and all of those basics in there as well. That is super smart for if you've got a place that charges $300 or more per night. If you include responsible amenities, you'll get bookings from responsible people. Instead of just putting out wine and having a pool table and a hot tub, right? Which there's nothing against a hot tub. It's probably one of the biggest SEO hacks on Airbnb still to this date. But instead of really banking on a pool table and a hot tub and wine in your photos and getting good time people who can sometimes break stuff and you get more short stays, adding these responsible amenities that people really truly appreciate because it makes the kitchen home, you get a completely different type of guest that you're going to appreciate. So if you have any questions about the kitchen, you want to know what's going on in the kitchen, I can tell you. Just put it in the comments down below and I'll do my best to answer to the best of my ability. Thank you so much for watching this channel and staying with me this whole time. It's been like 5 years now. This has been super exciting. And as always, I'll see you on the other side.